Ken Weaver, Dan Mandis here. Want to welcome on into the Newsmaker Hotline, State Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson joining us, and it's always a pleasure to have you on. And I want to play some audio. I'm positive, Senator, that you have heard this audio from Charlane Oliver, a state senator here in Nashville, and she is really angry because of something that the Senate did last week. Listen close.
It is a slap in the face, and you might as well stomp on the grave of Tyre Nichols for bringing this bill. Yes, we are emotionally charged. Why? Because it's personal for us. Taylor made this personal the minute he introduced this legislation to target one family and one life that was lost. So yeah, we're going to fight. Dr. King said the riots are the language of the unheard. You ain't saying nothing yet. If you keep silencing us like this, what do you think our district's going to do? We have had it up here. Gloves off. Like, we're going to fight like hell. You don't expect us to respond when you gaslight us every single day with these bills? There's a bill to get rid of the Tennessee Human Rights Commission that they're going to bring, to abolish it, rooted in the Civil Rights Act, to make sure that we have protections for folks that look like Tyre Nichols. Don't tell me this stuff ain't racist. Don't tell me it's not. It is rooted in racism. This was a Jim Crow bill that Taylor brought, and all his Confederates voted for it today.
So there's a lot to unpack there, Senator. So let me go through a little bit of this. What you folks did in the state Senate to make her so incredibly angry is that you decided that local communities, specifically Memphis, which is what we're talking about, Memphis City Council decided after the death of Tyre Nichols at the hands of 5 black police officers that they would not allow pretextual traffic stops in Memphis. And so now, over the last couple of weeks, the House and now the Senate have passed a bill. It's on its way to Governor Lee's desk where you're saying, no, you cannot usurp local laws. You cannot usurp state laws by coming up with your own local laws. And that means that the police in Memphis do have to continue with their pretextual traffic stops, even though the Memphis City Council decided not to. So long-winded, I know. Let's go through a few things, Senator. First of all, what is a pretextual traffic stop?
Hey, well, good morning, Dan. Always great to be with you. I appreciate you having me on. So, our brave men and women in uniform that protect us every day, the vast majority of whom are very, very good people dedicated to their profession and do a wonderful job of keeping us safe. There are going to be bad apples in every barrel, and sadly, the incident that took place in January of 2023 exposed 5 police officers that had no business being in uniform, and it was a horrific circumstance that happened to Tyre Nichols. I want to be very, very clear about that. It should not have happened, and those 5 police officers are going to be held to account, and they should be held to account. But one of the things our police officers do every day is they patrol the streets. And I don't know about you, but I've been pulled over before when I had a tail light out. Or maybe I was irresponsible and I didn't get my license plate renewed with the county clerk. And so I got pulled over by an officer who said, hey, your license plate is expired. Some of the times they give me a warning and say, go get that taken care of. Other times they give me a ticket and I deserve the ticket. But one thing that happens every time that happens, whether it's you, me, or anyone else, Dan, is they're going to check your identification. They're going to run your license and see if there are any outstanding warrants. They're going to take a quick visual look around your vehicle. And one thing that our law enforcement people will tell you all the time is that major crimes are often solved by these pretextual traffic stops. They run the license plate and find out this individual has an outstanding warrant for first-degree murder, and law enforcement has been looking for them. Or they see weapons or drug paraphernalia. There's all kinds of things that happen. So when you have a city like Memphis, which is a wonderful, wonderful city, but they have a huge crime problem. I've been on your show talking about it before. The last thing in the world we want to do is to tell police officers to stop pulling people over. That's not the answer to solve a very serious crime problem. So that's all the legislation did that Senator Brent Taylor brought. I enthusiastically supported the legislation to say, no, we're not going to allow cities or counties, local governments to say, okay, police officers, you're going to enforce these laws, but not these. Right. We have laws on the books. Law enforcement officers are sworn to uphold the law, and that's all laws, state, local, federal, it doesn't matter.
So the five incidents that the Memphis City Council told the police not to pull people over for: cars with expired registration within 60 days of expiration, when a temporary registration permit is improperly located but still clearly displayed, when the registration plate is not securely fastened but is clearly displayed, when a single brake or headlight is inoperable, and cars with loose bumpers. Well, you know, like you said, Senator Jack Johnson, this is a situation where oftentimes we see this, where they pulled these folks over and it turns out that the person also may have been drunk or on drugs or has a warrant out and so forth. And so, you know, you have some members of the community who will say, well, this just gives the police the reason or an excuse to harass the black community. And of course, cops will tell you, and I've been hearing from police officers this morning because I mentioned this earlier, and they will tell you that, yes, this is something where when you run the plates or when you run the ID of the person, they do have warrants out, and this gives them the opportunity to get a dangerous criminal off of the streets. And so it just makes sense. Do you know when you folks were crafting this bill, are there other communities across the country who have done this, who have said, okay, so we are going to outlaw at a local level these pretextual traffic stops, and what has that done to impact crime? Because it seems to me like this is just another example of Democrats and their soft on crime policies. When you've seen local communities try to bypass or ban these pretextual traffic stops, is there an example that this, you know, crime goes up, or does crime go down, or is it negligible?
Well, this is the first instance that I'm aware of. There may have been another attempt to do this. This is the first instance that I've heard of a local government, a city, county, a local jurisdiction passing an ordinance to tell their police officers not to enforce certain laws. However, at least with regards to pretextual traffic stops, I will give you a couple of examples, though, where cities attempted to do something and the state had to step in and preempt local governments. We had cities that wanted to become sanctuary cities. As you know, big talk about illegal immigration right now. We passed legislation to preempt local governments and say you cannot designate yourself as a sanctuary city, which in fact would mean that you are pledging to not cooperate with federal immigration authorities and not enforce federal immigration laws. That's one example. Another example is, I believe it was Nashville, wanted to pass an ordinance that says that they were not going to enforce simple possession of illegal drugs. And we passed legislation to prohibit that. So we have to have consistent application of the law across the state. And I want to be very clear, Dan, where police officers, any type of law enforcement is abusing their authority and targeting a particular group of people, that needs to be identified and it needs to be stopped, and those that are doing it need to be held accountable. At the same time, though, we don't need to handcuff our police officers. That's a strange, ironic kind of statement to say. We don't need to be impeding on our law enforcement officers' abilities to do what they do best, and that's keep us safe and find the bad guys and get them off the street.
Let me ask you, this Charlane Oliver, I've been playing the audio this morning. This is some of the more inflammatory language that she used when she was talking about what is going on in the state Senate.
Dr. King said the riots are the language of the unheard. You ain't saying nothing yet. You keep silencing us like this. What do you think our district's gonna do? We have had it up here. Gloves off. Like, we gonna fight like hell. It is rooted in racism. This was a Jim Crow bill that Taylor Brock and all his Confederates voted for today.
So she's calling, you and others in the state Senate Confederates and racists and all the other nonsense that we hear all the time, sadly, from people like this. And so I guess my question is there any kind of consequence for this kind of inflammatory language?
Well, that kind of language is unbecoming a member of the state Senate, and it's regrettable that she used that type of rhetoric. Look, we're focused on good policies in the state, and we're going to have a good public discourse. We in the Senate are very deliberate in our willingness and our desire to make sure that all sides of an issue are heard. If you look at the debate on this particular issue, I think we were on this particular bill for about 25 minutes, roughly. About 20 minutes of that were opponents, Democrats from our chamber speaking against the legislation. About 5 minutes were members speaking in favor of it. So we bend over backwards to make sure that all voices in the Senate can be heard. Obviously, we have a lot of business to get to, and at some point it's time to wrap up the debate. We need to move on. So let's have good, vigorous debates about public discourse and about policies that we're contemplating in the state of Tennessee. And when we do that, everyone wins.
Can you censure her?
No.
Okay. I'm just curious. To me, when you hear this kind of inflammatory language, it seems to be trying to provoke a reaction. And again, she's a state senator out of Nashville, but we all know that, as you indicated, that there is a lot of issues in Memphis and the death of Tyree Nichols. And you are right. It is just horrific. These 5 police officers just brutally beat him, and people have made sort of comments about maybe there are some other things involved. I'm not going to get into that at this point. But to me, you're right. These police officers have been held accountable. And so now I guess the next question is, what will Governor Bill Lee do with this legislation? Do you think he's going to sign it?
I never speak for Governor Lee. I hope that he does. I think this is good legislation. Again, we have to have consistent application of the law across the state, regardless of the city, the municipality, the county, whatever the case might be. And I want to reemphasize something I touched on earlier about Memphis. I love Memphis. Memphis is a wonderful, wonderful city, and there are wonderful people there, wonderful culture. And my good friend, Senator Brent Taylor, has a line that I've repeated many times, and that is Tennessee cannot reach its full potential if Memphis doesn't reach its full potential. We are spending a lot of time. I've been to Memphis 3 or 4 times, probably in the last 3 or 4 months, meeting with leaders down there at the invitation of Senator Taylor. The governor has been down there. We've sent state troopers down there to try to get them help with regards to their crime problem. We're meeting with business leaders down there. We believe in Memphis, and we want Memphis to succeed. But at the same time, they have a broken justice system down there, and people are being released without bail when they shouldn't be. And look, there were 398 murders in Memphis last year. That's more than New York City. New York City has 8 times the population, and yet Memphis had more homicides last year. We have to get this problem fixed. And the answer is not to tie the hands of our police officers when they're trying to get the bad guys off the street.
All right. State Senator Majority Leader Jack Johnson, as always, thanks for being here on Super Talk 99.7 at WTN.